Hello and welcome back to our VCF 5.2 technical video series. This time again, Alain is with me. So I guess we are talking about Windows operating systems.
Exactly.
No, that's not the plan for the day. The plan for today's video is that we talk about the Aria Operations or the VCF Operations Manager.
Right.
As you have seen in one of the last videos, Reinhard and myself, we have done the basic installation. So we utilized our Lifecycle Manager and deployed the Aria Operations Manager and the Aria Operations for log. But still, please have in mind, and to be honest, we have already done this in the meantime because we would like to show you already some insights. After the default setup is done, yes, your workload domains gets connected to your operations manager, but still there is some manual tasks to do, to be honest. So after the installation is finished, when you log in and you go into your overview, you see, okay, I have not connected a VMware Cloud Foundation instance. So first of all, you need to connect to your VMware Cloud Foundation. So you can do it from here, or you go into integrations and you select here add, then you select the VMware Cloud Foundation, give it a name. You can also utilize the description field. Then you can select your physical data center. So I already created our data center in Vienna. Then you present here your SDDC manager, FQDN, select the credentials, and then you save it. And afterwards, that's the beauty of the whole VMware Cloud Foundation story. He automatically connects to your workload domain. He automatically connects to your vCenter and also to your NSX environment. So everything gets automatically connected. And then you have already the whole integration between Operations Manager, vCenter, Lifecycle Management, SDDC Manager, and also your NSX environment. So this is automatically done there. And on the other hand, as you can see, also he integrates Ops Manager with NSX. Also here, related to the SDDC Manager, automatically in NSX, and user accounts gets created and then connected your Ops Manager with your NSX environment. The second thing, and this is really something important, when you log into your Operations Manager, you will see here a yellow checkbox telling you that you don't have configured a currency. Since Operations Manager is also related to cost optimization and stuff like this, it tells you, hey, you need to select your currency. But please be aware, this is a one-time shot. So as soon if you select your currency, you cannot change it. So what have we already done? We selected the European euro as a currency that we can afterwards see, hey, do we have here any optimization? And then after the integration is done, you get the beautiful overview. Okay, where is my Cloud Foundation located? In Austria, in Vienna. And you see here already, I don't have any issues with certificates. Currently, there is no configuration drift supported, but this is something we will cover afterwards. And you see already a summarization. What is my overall capacity? Are we running out of capacity? So currently, everything looks really beautiful. And as mentioned, since we have already done the integration, you see already my cost of ownership. Do I have already some potential savings? Maybe I can save 260 euros per month. But we will have a look into that. Yeah, absolutely. So that's have been the steps we have done already in the meantime. So basically connect our SDDC manager with the operations manager, because this is not done automatically when you select or when you deploy the operations manager. This needs to be done manually. And also I generated the data center location. So what are our next steps, Alain? So I will now hand over the screen sharing to you, to your side.
That's
and
fine.
Now you can start to work.
And first of all, let me show you in the launch pad here, also in the home screen, you see the pillars of operation. You see everything that operations is going to do for you. And I cannot stress enough, and I know I'm biased because I'm the operations guy, but still, if you're running VCF, operation is in your future, whether you like it or not, because VCF Operations, now Aria Operations, is the basis for management and monitoring in VCF, and even more in the next versions. So you better get used to it. There are other packages that are fine. You may have Zabbix or Isinga 2 or whatever. These packages are not operational tools, and they don't work yet, maybe, with VCF from Broadcom. So operations is really a must, and that's why we are doing this series, to make you more acquainted with it, to help you get started.
Yeah, that's already something I would also like to stress out a little bit, because what we know so far, to be honest, so this is a little bit looking into the big ball of glass, but to be honest, this has already been shown more or less also in the keynotes on VMware Explore in Las Vegas, but also now in Barcelona. As Alain just mentioned, VCF Operations will become, let's call it, the kind of a new SDDC manager. So everything we know currently, what is in there in the SDDC manager, will totally be handed over to VCF Operations. So this will be the future console for all of your work. It will be more and more be the main pillar of the whole VMware Cloud Foundation story. So as Alain just mentioned, please, since you have it in your licenses, start to work with it. It is, especially at the beginning, also still from my side, because I'm also working with VCF Operations, or Aria Operations still, which is the current name, since the beginning. So I know it was originating called vCenter Operations Manager in the good old days. But also for me, since I'm not 100% related to an operational team, I'm more consulting, architectural. Also for me, it is still amazing what you can do with operations manager. But since we are not doing marketing videos, I would like to have a look into the technical series. And
There you go. So you see, operations will do the observability for you, and we're going to start with that. As said by Toby, there is a capacity calculation, and that is rather unique. It's been in operations for a long time, and it's very useful for planning. Cost, why we chose the euro. Together with the capacity planning, you can do some cost calculations. And then compliance checking and sustainability, like, hey, how much CO2 do I produce here? And compliance is very important, because it allows you, we'll have a quick look at it before we jump into observability. This is something VMware has created for free. You see here VMware benchmarks. So if you have an environment and you would like to check that, hey, do I configure everything right for my vSphere security guidelines or NSX? You can switch these on here, but also the regulatory benchmarks. There's CIS here, these are FISMA, these are all rather US based, but HIPAA for the health industry, ISO, and PCI are very relevant in Europe. PCI is Payment Card Industry Association, not the interface of your desktop on your on your desk. And for example, ISO compliance, much used in Europe. I can just activate that, and it will check my environment against a set of rules that have been defined for ISO 27001, such as, for example, let's take a good one. Oh, here, auto install of tools is activated. So for the compliance, one of the rules is that you have to activate the automatic installation of the VMware tools. And there are tens of that like it. You can run reports to see which one are working, which are not working. You can add your own, you can make your own compliance set. And if there are non-compliances, you are warned by alerts.
Yeah. That's also something I would really like to more or less stress out a little bit, because I know from your experience in the past that you had a customer which has done an auditing related to ISO 20700, and you showed him, hey, if you use the management pack, your auditing will be shortened down from weeks to more or less hours. But also related to American customers, as you can see, there is HIPAA compliance, there is FISMA, so also there, the other international compliance checks are there, and you really your whole environment. So from the SDDC manager down to vCenter, down to a single virtual machine, NSX environment, really gets fully validated. So what you may have done in the past really manually with a bunch of lists and verified, hey, okay, do I have password rotation enabled, for example, on my NSX manager? Okay, let's have a look. Yes, it is enabled. It's done fully automatically. So you really get at the end, and that's also something important, you really get a report telling you, hey, everything which needs to be compliant is compliant. It has been validated on this date at this time, and you always can reproduce. And he's also checking if someone has changed something. So, for example, if an automatic password rotation gets disabled, he immediately will raise an alarm and say, "Hey, there is the password rotation has now been disabled. Please enable it again. Otherwise, you would not be compliant." For example.
Exactly. A new addition in operations is because before you could report on the compliancy, but you couldn't change anything, you couldn't repair. But now they made a start with configuration drifts. With configuration drifts, you can create a template of a vCenter, and I have none at the moment, and then have continuously checks done if the config of your vCenter changes, if there are configuration drifts that need to be remediated. But as we said, our operations is up and running. Observability is active, so your out-of-the-box operations in your VCF environment will show an inventory, a vSphere world, and you see here objects, obviously a vCenter, a data center, and under the data center, a cluster, and so on and so on. Resource pools, ESX servers. And you see, excuse me, most importantly in operations, the relationships are detected. So operations will see for you that this ESX server is part of this cluster that is part of this data center. So you see all the relationships. It's the fastest way to see that, hey, this data store is attached to this virtual machine. Now, the beauty of operations is that for all these objects, the menu on the right-hand side, the detail menu is the same. So if I click on the host here, sorry, you see a summary. It's powered on. Hey, that's good. It's a Supermicro. Some details, 24 cores, active alerts, none. Everything is dandy. It says something about capacity already. and some quick data. But then you must realize that operations is a tool that gathers information from APIs, always APIs. That's what we see in the integrations that you showed before. Let's quickly go back there to show it. Your cloud foundation, you have a connection to a vCenter and an SDDC manager at this URL with some credentials and a collector group. And operations will contact that API and get out the data and create the objects and the metrics. And then people will say like, yeah, well, but vCenter, you only connect data every 5 minutes. That's not enough for me. I can't use operations. Well, that's a big misconception, because operations will do a collection cycle every 5 minutes, but will collect all the data within those 5 minutes, and you can even activate to have data every 20 seconds. If you're in an environment where you have to detect problems quickly or something like that, you can activate those. So for all these objects, you can see the metrics that are gathered for that object. So for example, for a cluster here, you have metrics. Properties are alphanumeric metrics. So for example, CPU, I can see here what is the workload of my CPU. The minimum was 35%, here orange, and the maximum around 41, so not very busy. I can change, of course, the date controls. I can see my last 7 days. If I click go, of course. Yep, here we go. And I can add some other metrics like memory. Hey, let's look at workload 2 here. And so on and so on. You can even, and this is magic, if you're on a metric, you can click here on the little icon of correlation and say, well, I want to see a metric that has the same pattern matching in peers, so in other ESX servers. And of course, there are none, because we have no problems at the moment. He doesn't find anything. But that's one way to do troubleshooting. You can export this to PDF or to a dashboard. We'll touch on dashboards later, but most importantly is this. Toby, you like this? The dynamic thresholds. So for every metric that is gathered by operations, the system will calculate what the normal threshold is for that parameter. So you see here, for CPU workload, normal is between 35 something and 39 something. As long as the metric stays in that area, you will not get alerts. If you go outside of it, above or below, for one collection cycle usually, but you can change that, he will raise an alert, a dynamic alert. When the situation goes away, usually 2 or 3 collection cycles, then the alert goes away again automatically. You don't have to set boundaries like you used to do with old monitoring software.
Which brings me to more or less an important information. So guys, please be aware, out of the box, so right after the installation of your operations manager, I hate to name it that way, but he is kind of dumb. So he don't know anything about your environment. So what's really an important part is you need to give him some time. Yeah, the basic stuff like, verify that an ESXi host is up and running. Everything is working out of the box. But really to learn how your data center is working, he needs time. Collecting all of the information, figures out, hey, it is okay that maybe a virtual machine is permanently consuming 80-90% of the CPU, because this virtual machine is working, everything is fine. But then afterwards, he gets the capability to alert you, as Alain already mentioned, If the CPU usage then gets higher than 90%, he can give you an alert. But also if it drops, so for example, from 1 second to another second, the CPU usage drops to 0%, which is an anomaly, which is not normal, because he knows after 4 weeks or after 6 months, always this particular virtual machine was working on the highest amount of 90%. But from 1 second to another, it is dropping. So also here, he can then alert you and says, hey, we have here maybe an issue, or we maybe see here some problems. So please do something.
Exactly. And you can click around here. I can now go to a virtual machine, and you see that the interface stays the same. I see here that it's a Linux now. It's your SD1. No alerts, some information, and again, a metrics tab where I can look at the metrics here. And a useful tip here, if you see category of metrics with the yellow indicator, it means that one of the metrics in that category has changed more or less a lot, substantially. That's the word I was looking for. So, for example, here CPU demand has changed dramatically, and the other graphics stay in the picture. You can compare your ESX host with your virtual machine, and you see here there was a jump here on November 24th for some reason, and then afterwards it slacked off again. Okay. Why do you see by the way, the dynamic threshold only here just before the 26th? That's because we have a new installation. Toby just told you it needs time. This is where it knows this is the dynamic threshold.
Threshold, yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Toby. I know you wanted to say something.
No. That's really the important part. As you just mentioned, he needs to learn, and also if something changed dramatically, you get also here the notification. One thing, especially what was really bothering me in the past, as soon as I had installed my operations manager, immediately after a couple of days, a couple of weeks, I get a bunch of alarms. And this was always something which was concerning a customer, but also myself, to be honest. But because if I install a new tool, and immediately after a couple of days I get a bunch of alarms, it is not maybe the best idea. But also here, Broadcom has listened here to their customers, and this has been changed, to be honest. But maybe not in the best manner. Let's call it politically correct. In the best manner. So also here, if you log in to your operations manager, you will get now an notification telling you, hey, some of the alarms has been deprecated or has been set to deprecated, and please have a look into it. So what should customers do now, or how should customer react to this message?
Exactly. The message indicates that you're running a vanilla operations and you need to adapt it to your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that is very important that I see customers the whole time who've never done it is you need to look at policies. You see policies here in the right-hand corner. Every object has a policy view. You see here default policy. What are policies? Well, if you go to, I'm sure I'm going to be wrong again. It's in operations. A tip in the new interface, if you can't find anything like me, it's under the operations tab. I guarantee it. And most probably then under configurations in operations, because here is everything that you can configure. Some bright spirit thought like everything that can be configured should be under the same heading. And you have policies here. What are policies? VMware realized that with the standard out-of-the-box operations, you have a standard set of metrics, dynamic trends that are recognized, but they're not valid for everyone in every situation. You might want to have an alert if your CPU is at 90% for your production environment, but not for your test dev environment. So what did I come up with already a long time ago, but it has been greatly expanded, is policies. A policy is simply a configuration file for operations. But the great thing is such a configuration file can be created for one object or a group of objects. And we'll talk about that later. Very important to use this in conjunction with custom groups because it allows you to really separate your environment in different parts and configure each one as you like. Since this is a new environment, we have one default policy that is active, indicated by the D. Hey, what happens if you have different policies assigned to the same object because one object belongs to different groups or whatever? Well, you'll simply see them here with another priority, 1, 2, 3, and the policies will simply be caked one on top of the other on the object, no problem. What is in the default policies? Let's have a quick look. There's a lot in there nowadays also regarding pricing and so on, but important now for us at the beginning is there's a metrics and properties tab, but there's nothing in it, no, because you have to call them for a certain object like a virtual machine. And then you see, hey, these are the metrics for a virtual machine, but to your shock and horror, you see that not all metrics are active out of the box. Peak vCPU overlap is activated, but for example, this one, and as Toby mentioned, a lot of them now have the indication deprecated, so they will be removed in the foreseeable future. But now they're here, but they're deactivated. But you can reactivate them if you want. I also mentioned the 20-second intervals. You can activate those. So you can change here which metrics are gathered for your objects. And also with the alerts, let's call virtual machines again. Because I know there's a pet peeve in here for Toby. You see a lot of the alerts are now deactivated. But some useful ones like, yes, virtual machine is running on snapshot for more than 2 days, is now deactivated out of the box. But every customer that I know uses this one. I even have customers who change the definition to have it run after 3 days, but then, for example, automatically delete the snapshots with the alert, because you can do that. This is a great thing for your environments. If you have these nasty internal customers that create big snapshots, well, you can erase them automatically after 2 days. I think a lot of people are starting to dream now.
which also, as mentioned before, most of the alarms are now deprecated, or not most, many alarms has been deprecated. So also here, your ops manager at the beginning will now be more or less silently, and you really need to enable it, which has been totally the opposite what we have seen in the past. One last question from my side, or for this video, to be honest. As we have seen now in the policies, I can enable the metrics I would like to see. So is there, let's call it a useful site or a useful description available, what metrics are really interesting for a virtual machine, for example? Let's stay on the example with CPUs. On one hand, we have the description when we have a look into the metrics, but do I get here more information or deeper information on it?
No, you don't.
Okay.
But there is a publication, and it's in the standard documentation of operations. There's a guide. It's called, for every version of operations, the metrics and properties guide, I think, and that lists completely for every object all the metrics and what they actually are. But also to help you without that guide is if you go to any object, like in the cluster, let's take an ASX server again. If you take a metric like in, let's say, network data transmit rates, you see there's a tooltip help.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. There is a tooltip where you can see what is the matrix really telling you, and what are the parts we can see here.
All right.
Okay, all right, guys. So this brings us to the end of episode 14. Alain, thanks for joining. And we see you hopefully we can see you. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks for your subscriptions. And hopefully we see you in the next video. So in the next episode, we will talk about custom groups definitions, why they are useful. And we already start talking about custom dashboards. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for your attention and see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.